Hello and welcome to Writing and Publishing a DIY Guide, Episode 8, Getting Published. Now before we start, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel and like some of the videos. I really want to grow the channel and I want to help more people get started and getting the books started, finished and hopefully published. And the only way you can help me do that is just by liking and subscribing. Onto the video itself. I'm not done with talking about the actual writing side yet. I am going to go back to that, but I think at this stage really it's going to be helpful if we talk about your options for getting your book actually out there and published, so that you can be thinking about that while you're writing it. Now, the basic three options you've got when it comes to getting your book published and out there. We've got a vanity press, we've got self-publishing, and we've got traditional publishing. I call it trad publishing for short. Okay. So, if you're looking at the traditional publishing model and you're trying to get your book to be accepted and printed, and you find a publisher who offers you some sort of hybrid deal where they will publish it and they will take on, but they want you to contribute to the costs of production, that is basically a vanity press posing as a publisher and trying to make some money out of you. They won't actually try and help you to market your book. They won't really do any of the stuff that a good traditional publisher will do for you. If all you care about is getting some books printed and in your hands so that you can distribute them among your friends, maybe if you wanted to sell them online, you could use a vanity press, but it's going to be expensive and they're not going to help you. I would personally rule these out as an option. If a publisher wants money off you to contribute towards the cost of putting your book into production, walk away. Now the next thing you're going to be thinking about is, okay, we're left with two options here, self-publishing and traditional publishing. Now, within traditional publishing, there are various ways into it, but there's two main options. Option one is through a submissions call. And option two is through an agent. Now, periodically, traditional publishing houses, particularly perhaps some of the smaller independent publishing houses who cater to a specific niche or genre, have what they call an open submissions call. And these are, if you want to find out about them, you need to get onto the Twitter of the publishing houses that you think your book is a good fit for, get onto their Instagram, join their mailing list, all that sort of stuff. Somewhere there will be information where periodically, like once a year or twice a year, every few months they'll say, for the next 60 or 90 days we're having an open submissions call, in which case anybody can send in your manuscript to the publishing house straight away, and that will end up on what they tend to call, they used to call, I don't know if they still call it, but will probably end up on what they call the slush pile. Now, you've got to be patient if you're going to go down this route. This is the usual way for it to happen. They make a submission call, within the next so many days we're going to be accepting manuscripts from authors without an agent, unsolicited manuscripts. They go on the slush pile, and then there'll be the job of an intern or a junior editor at the publishing house to just sit through those manuscripts, probably would have been, they call it the sus pile, but nowadays it's probably digital. It would have been a pile of manuscripts printed out and bound, where somebody would pick each one up, read the first page or the first paragraph. If they liked it, they'd read on, and eventually they might come to a point where they think, this is good, I'm going to ask one of the people who has some decision-making power at the company to have a look at this, because I think it's good. The reality is, if you're going down this route, you're going to be ending up in a situation where your book is going to be with a lot of others, and it's going to have to really stand out, and particularly the first paragraph, the first page. When someone's just read 20 terrible first pages and they're like kind of getting a bit sick of it and want to go and do something else, that's what you're contending with. That first paragraph, that first page has to be original, it has to have a strong voice, and it has to really grab them and make them not want to put it down. It's got to make them want to read on. If you're going to have a chance of succeeding in this way, particularly. There are some great books that have been published that way. It does work, but it applies to every method, but it tells you why you've really got to make that first paragraph, that first page really, really special, and you've got to grab them and convince them that you cannot put this down, you cannot stop reading. If you can do that, you've got a chance with this method. Now, with an agent, it works a little bit differently. The first thing to do is to look up different literary agencies. Personally, I prefer one in my own country, so I'm in the UK, so I would prefer a British publishing house, a literary agency. If I was living in America, I would prefer an American one, just because there may at some point come a time where if your book's doing well and you want to have some discussions about your contracts and these sort of things, you can travel to where they are and do it over a coffee. It's much nicer than Zoom calls and telephone calls and that sort of thing. It's nice to have, and also I think if you think your main market is your domestic market, so if you're British, you think the British market is who you're writing for, then you really, in America, same if you're American and you think you're writing for an American market, you really want to publish it or an agent that understands your market and that's got experience of it and that works for the trends within that market. So once you've found an agent that you like the sound of and you think sounds like a good fit for your book, you're going to have to send them an inquiry letter. Some of them will have some open submission forms and means by which through their website you can make a digital submission without actually contacting them, make an inquiry. But personally, I think it gives you a bit more of a personal touch if you can find an agent, read up on what they like. So they'll have somewhere on their website a profile which tells you the sort of things they like, what their preferences are, and give you an idea, hopefully, as to whether they're going to enjoy your book. If they like historical fiction, romance, and you're writing a shifter horror story, that's probably not the right agent for you. If they really like YA and popular fiction, and you're writing literary fiction, they're probably not going to be the right one for you. You need to find an agent who's a good match for you. Then what you need to do is write them an inquiry email, which you want to say to them in that email that you have read their profile and you understand what they like and that your book is a good fit for them because of X. So email them why your book is a good fit. Hopefully, if they think that your book sounds like it might be a good fit for them, if they say, I read and publish and like a lot of YA urban fantasy, and you say I've written a YA urban fantasy story about vampires. This is roughly what it's about. This is what happened. These are the sort of themes that I've written about. Are you interested in taking a look? And they get back to you and say yes. Then you can send them your manuscript. If they like it, then that's another route into getting your book published. The only thing about the agent which you won't get through this method here is that cut. So obviously an agent is going to want a cut of royalties. They want to get paid. And that might sound bad, but an agent has probably dealt with a lot of books and dealt with a lot of publishers. They're probably better at negotiating a deal with a publisher. So even though they're taking a cut, you may be better off with an agent anyway. They also might have contacts in the film and the television industries, and they might have ideas about how to get your book translated into more languages and maybe sold abroad through foreign publishers. You shouldn't discount the use of an agent, unless you really know the publishing industry inside out and you've already got a lot of contacts. I think probably my preference would be to go for an agent so I could take advantage of their experience and their contacts. And they may even be, if they're into your work and they like what you're producing, they might even be able to help you with some ideas on where to take your writing career and move forward with it. You are going to obviously give them a cut of royalties, but I think that's probably going to be worth it. Again, if you're a member of the Society of Authors or the Authors Guild in America, I think it is, you can take any contracts that you're offered through these or these methods, and you can get them checked over by somebody who's got more experience to make sure you're getting a fair deal and it's a legitimate contract. So those are your two main avenues for traditional publishing: your open submission call, then your manuscript being to the slush pile, and then being eventually picked up probably after a few weeks, a few months. You don't lose that cut of royalties, or you go through an agent. You send an inquiry email that basically proves to them that you've read their profile, you know what they're about, and you know why your book is a great fit for them as an agent. Yes, you give them a cut of your royalties, but you gain from their experience. Now, your next main option is the self-publishing route, and this is where it gets a bit complicated and a bit it really fans out the options. There are lots of companies who will publish for you and do some of the work for you in this, and that's, if they're honest about it and honest about what they're doing, that's not a bad thing. I know there are some I even used one myself for a while to sort of sell my books across a broad spectrum. If you're thinking of going down that route, do your research, make sure you're not again falling into the vanity press trap. Really, it shouldn't be any setup costs as such. It should be more of you giving them some sort of cut of the royalties that you make by selling your books. The options that I use I'm going to go through now, and again, there's two main options. The fact is, as much as anybody might not like Amazon is the biggest platform for selling ebooks at the moment, by a huge wedge, and they know it, and they want to keep a lot of books exclusive to theirs. So what they have is something called the KDP Select program. It stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. Now, if you join KDP Select, your books are going to be exclusively available on Amazon. your ebooks are. You can also publish paperbacks through the KDP program. Bit trickier to set up and to format your documents. And also I think that probably the platform and the trim sizes that they offer and the costs probably better suit things like illustrated self-help books and information books rather than fiction. That's just my experience. I tend to think that if you want to do paperbacks, there are better ways than using the KDP program, which I'll go into in a minute. The advantage of the KDP program is you can, as long as your book's priced at, I think it's $2.99, you get 70% royalties on that. Anything higher than that. If it's lower, if you're like doing a cheap short story or novella or something, and you put it out at 0.99 cents, then it's less. I think it's 30% off the top of my head. And again, there is an upper limit, I think, for this 70%. But you're probably going to want to be selling your novel at between $2.99 and $9.99. That's probably what the sensible range is. And again, that should give you 70% royalties. You also, in the KDP program, you've got two ways of looking at it. You can go into KU, which is Kindle Unlimited, and basically Kindle Unlimited is a Spotify for ebooks. People pay so much a month and they get access to read so many books or whatever they want a month, and you get paid how much people read. In the past, there have been all sorts of dodgy scams with Kindle Unlimited, with people putting links in books to send people to the back of the book at the start. And at the moment, it was something which had got a bit out of hand, but Amazon has cracked down on that and sorted that out. You don't get paid anything like as much for reads as for buys, but you can find that there's people who join Kindle Unlimited and will reread things that they really enjoyed reading, and so you can get paid twice from the same customer sometimes, or the same reader, whereas if they buy it, then they bought it, they own it, and you're not going to get paid from them again. The other option, aside to the KU, are your KDP Select free days. Now, with any 90-day period, you get something like 5 free days. So you aren't allowed to make your book free on this platform. It has to be at least, it might be 99 cents, it might be 66 cents. It's a small amount, but you can't make your book free. If you're in KDP Select, I mean, you could publish on Amazon without being in KDP Select, but if you want to be in Kindle Unlimited, you have to be. And if you want these 5 free days, you have to be. But you get these 5 free days for so many periods of the year. So, if you've got a series that's 7 books long, you might think, okay, how am I going to get people to read my series? I'm an unknown author, it's my debut series. You might say, okay, every time there's a new free period, I'm going to use up my free days. I'll have a 2-day free period for book 1 at the start of that period of 3 days, and then I'll have a 3-day in the middle. For book 1 of that period, so that periodically people can pick up your book 1 for free, and you can hopefully get them into your story, get them into your writing. What you will find is if you do this alone, you won't get many free downloads. You might get a handful. Depends what genre you're in and what your SEO's like on your description page. If you want to boost these, there are lots of services you can use which promote books which are temporarily free, with a cover and a blurb. And the easy and obvious one to suggest using is something called Freebooksy. Look it up on the internet if you want a surefire way to to get people trying your books out. Knock out a 3-book series, put it in Kindle Select, KDP Select, then periodically do a 2-day free period, then a 3-day free period later on, and every time you do a free day or a couple of free days, promote it with Freebooksy or one of the other similar services, which basically sends out an email to their email list saying, here's some great books, these are free, give them a try. And you will pick up a lot more downloads if you use something like that. If your book is rubbish, then you're not going to make much money that way. You're not going to sell many books because they'll start reading the first book, hate it, and never want to go any further. If you're good, you will get some sales out of this if you book 2 and you book 3. What you won't get is the same amount of sales for book 2 as you get downloads for book 1, because some people just hoard books. They hoard covers, they see free things, they download them, they'll read the first page, decide they're not in the mood for that, and then read something else and forget about it. But you will get some. If you can get 200 downloads for your first book using this method of using a free day and promoting it with something like Freebooksy, you're going to get some sales. As long as it's good, you're going to get some sales. Now, that is the model that I used for a long time with my Death Row and Art series, and it worked. I'm planning on going back to this model because the change I made I feel hasn't actually helped me, and this was a better means of getting books out there. Once I've published my book 7, I'm probably going back to this method here. Sort of. I say sort of because there is another option to this which can also work. Now, what you do gain by this is your KU. If you don't have your book in KDP Select, you can't join Kindle Unlimited. But in honesty, the amount of actual sales I've made or money I've made through Kindle Unlimited reads, it's very, very small. You're much better selling books than people read on Kindle Unlimited, unless it's a sort of book that people are going to read and read again and read again, in which cases Kindle Unlimited readers are quite nice because they might keep coming back to it, you might keep getting paid. Your other option is what I call the broad distribution model, and it allows you to sell your book in more places. Do a little bit of rubbing out and I'll explain. Now, there are a few places that do this sort of service, but I'm going to tell you the main one that I use and which works fairly well, and it's called Smashwords. You can look it up online. Now, to publish on Smashwords, you need a Word document, and it needs to go through their Cruncher, they call it, I think, or something like that. And basically, it's a program which takes that Word document and converts it into all the various formats for all the different e-readers. So it can, I think you can even do Amazon as well, but I always did my Amazon separate. But you can do it for Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple Books. There's a whole list of books which, by publishing once with Smashwords, which you can buy books from itself, you also get it on various other platforms. So Smashwords, you know, you might find that also gives you B&N, Kobo, Apple iBooks. Now, okay, that's great. We've got these books on these other platforms. How are we going to get people to try an unknown author who's just an indie, who's just got ebooks out potentially? Well, you can use the same method as we use on the Kindle Select method, but you lose the Kindle Unlimited option. And what you do is Smashwords will allow you to set your book's price to 0. Right? So if you set your price to $0.00 and you run it across all these platforms, you're basically giving that book away free. Some people don't like the idea of doing that, but if you've got a series, it's a good way of getting people to give your books a try. If you're a new author and you're self-published, you're an indie, and you've not got a traditional publishing company marketing for you, it's a way of getting people to try your writing. Maybe write a series on purpose just so that you can use this method to get people to give you a try. You pick up a few fans, then you do your big magnus opus 600-page epic one book, and you might work that way. But you'll need those fans first, and people aren't going to buy a 600-page door stopper from an author they've never heard of. Probably. A few might, but not many will. It's going to be a really hard sell. This way you can get people to try your books, try you as a writer, and give it a go. So, you've made that free on all these platforms. You can still use free Booksy to promote them, but now, instead of having to wait for the days when you happen to have booked it on a KDP Select free day, you can do one of these promotions whenever you like. And you can alternate between free Booksy and the various other services that do the same thing. So every month you can be promoting your free book to a different group of readers. And by the time you've been around the circuit, maybe more people will have joined the first emailing list that you set out on. You know, you can pick up readers using this. The question is, what about Amazon? There's no reason you can't also publish on Amazon. What you will find though is you need to get the book to be free on Amazon. The way to do it, there's various ways of doing it. You can, if people report that the book is available cheaper somewhere else for you, if there's enough of those reports, then Amazon will price match this figure. Okay. You can also contact Amazon customer services and explain to them, look, my book's free everywhere else and it's 99p on your side. Can you set up price matching for me? And in my experience in the past, they've always done that for me without a problem. So that way you can set it up so you can make your first book free, then you can sell your book 2s and onwards. And hopefully you'll pick up a few readers and you'll get people looking forward to your next book coming out, which I do have. I've built up a number of fans using this method. It's well worth trying. Now, this is very similar to the other method, but obviously it's a choice of really, do you want to have broad distribution with the ability to promote your free book whenever you want, or do you want to have those Kindle Unlimited reads but have to be selective with when you have free days and how many free days you have? I tried this originally. I moved over to the KU model, but I'm thinking I might go back to this, mainly because I think there's probably more potential in these, which I never really tapped because it's been a couple of years since I took it out of that system. What we haven't covered is paperbacks. As I said before, you can publish paperbacks through KDP. The issue you'll find with any of the ways of publishing your own paperbacks is that they tend to end up, any POD, paperback, which stands for print on demand, tends to be expensive. If you order 1,000, the price will come down, but it's then on you to find 1,000 buyers for that book. Maybe if it's really good and it gets some media exposure, you might even convince someone like Waterstones or the equivalent in America to actually buy some for stock. But they're probably going to be expensive books and your margins are going to end up being squeezed. If you are publishing fiction, a novel, something like that, I probably wouldn't use the KDP option. The reporting is very nice on their site, but actually the print quality and the trim sizes on offer and the whole package to me is better suited towards information books, illustrated self-help books, that sort of thing, rather than novels and fiction. The one that I use is a company called Ingram Spark, which actually used to print their books in another company called Lightning Source. Now, it's a bit trickier getting your book formatted for Ingram Spark. What you need to do is take your Word document and make it into a PDF, which is the right page size for the trim that you've chosen to do it in. And you've also got to consider, when you've got your book open like this, there's a spine down the middle, and anything here or here is going to be hard to read because it's kind of held inside the book. So you need to make your text have a gap there. Setting up that file is a little bit of a learning curve. If you're not very tech savvy, it might be worth getting some help with that. You also need, for your cover art, it's going to be a bit tricky. Your ebooks on Amazon and Smashwords, it's pretty straightforward. You get a JPEG or a PNG file, you upload it, away you go. You can find people on Fiverr to produce a cover for you. If you wanted an epic fantasy cover, you're probably going to have to pay a bit more. But that's pretty basic to do on Amazon or Smashwords. Getting the cover uploaded is not a problem. With Ingram Spark, what you need is to download a template file, which is a PDF, which has got basically all these sort of markers on it, which tell you where the bleed is on the page, and you then need to send that to whoever produced your cover art, and they need to then send a PDF back which has got their cover within this, which has got the spine on it, the front and the back. Setting up that file and getting it right is a lot trickier. But once you've done that and you've got it published through Ingram Spark, it will eventually appear on Amazon and other booksellers as well. Barnes & Noble, Kobo, they'll all start selling that book as a paperback. The issue you're going to have is the amount of royalty you get, because the print costs are high, particularly if they're only ordering one copy, and they want to make some money as well on selling the book. So it's going to be a tricky one. You're never going to do as well as a self-publisher selling these sort of paperbacks as you would if you had a traditional publishing deal. Now, the last option you've got for publishing, I'll probably have to talk about another time because it's a whole other topic. But we've got your ebooks sorted, we've got your paperback sorted. How about your audiobooks? The one you need to look at for the audiobooks is a company called ACX. Now, they are part of Amazon. They're owned and run by Amazon, and they've got quite strict requirements on the audio file that you upload to them. You also need a cover file, but you do get good royalties on audiobooks you sell. When I produced my first audiobook, it was I actually paid to have a professional voice actress and producer to put together Death Throne or The Last Dragon Slayer, and that's been really well received. People really like that book, but because I'd sold so many copies of the first book as an ebook, ACX/Amazon basically invited me to publish it for free, and the deal I did with the producer of the audiobook was, normally you can either just pay them to produce it for you and you take all the royalties, or you just agree to share the royalties. So within the platform we said, okay, we'll share the royalties, but then I also contributed some money to the costs. If I'd been a more famous author, I probably wouldn't have had to contribute and they'd have been happy to share the royalties. But ACX is something we'll look into another time. But if you want to have a precursory look at how it works, that's the website you need to go to look at audiobook publishing, and that will put your audiobooks on Audible, which is again run by Amazon. And there are other ways people can buy ACX produced books. But that's pretty much it, and if you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll try and help you out. But just to summarise, you've got your traditional publishing where you've got the open submissions call and the slush pile, or you go through an agent, email inquiry that's tailored to that agent and what they like. You're going to take a cut, but you get the benefit of their services. Then you've got the KDP Select. You publish on Amazon, you make it Amazon exclusive. You get your Kindle Unlimited reads and you get so many free days. Or you go for the broad distribution, whereby you go to Smashwords or an equivalent, publish on as many platforms as you can, make it free, then for the get Amazon to price match it, and then promote the first book of the series using something like free Booksy or one of the equivalents. If you can find a good equivalent, then alternate between them so that you can hit different groups of readers. If you start a series and you write 2 series, then cross-promote your series. You've got series 1, every book of that, yes, talk about book 2, but also talk about series 2. Also talk about series 2. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. It's been a long one today and a complicated one. I'll maybe go back into some of these in some greater depth with some screenshots and some more detailed instruction later. But just as you're working towards finishing your novel, I want you to have an idea of what you can do with it afterwards and how you can sell it. And these are your main options. Hope it's been helpful. Again, as I said, I really want to help as many writers starting out as I can. And the only way I can do that is if people like and subscribe and share these videos. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.